Well, starting today, PayPal will let American users pay with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. To talk about this, I want to bring in my next guest, Terry Sawchuk. He's the founder of Sawchuk Wealth, and he's going to help me out with this because cryptocurrencies are not my thing. I don't understand Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Is this real money? Is this monopoly money? Where is it living? What does it look like? Explain this.
Well, those are, I think, questions that a lot of people have. I think Bitcoin's here to stay. It is a cryptocurrency is essentially, it's a digital ledger, meaning that it's a store of value and its price is determined by supply and demand, right? The more people want it, the price goes up and so forth. I know with PayPal, it's interesting because PayPal is settling payments by accepting cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin or Ethereum. But the reality is all they're doing is they're converting that cryptocurrency to US dollars and then using US dollars to settle the payment. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what backs up a cryptocurrency? Because in my mind, if you own gold, you have something tangible. A cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, what is the value? Where is it?
This is what always comes up, right? So the reality is gold is used for almost nothing anymore. It's used for jewelry, which of course is subjective, and it's used for a little bit in computer parts. But the reality is gold is only worth something because people are willing to pay for it and it has perceived value. It's not all that different than fiat currencies. Fiat currencies are really there as a representative store of value, and they're only worth something if somebody says that they're worth something. You can make an argument in the case of the US dollar, we've got tax revenues and we've got military assets and things like that. But in the end, we're taking on all this debt, so all we're doing is offsetting those assets by, a liability anyway. So the thing that's interesting about Bitcoin is that there's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be mined or created. Right now, there's 19.5 million of those that are in circulation. And so when it gets to 21 million, they're not making any more. And when you look at it as a store of value, the thing that's nice about Bitcoin versus, say, a piece of gold is that you can actually divide Bitcoin electronically to, theoretically 1/1,000,000th of whatever the asset piece is there. Whereas with gold, you can't walk into a Starbucks and shave off a piece of gold and pay for a cup of coffee that way. So I think in the end, the world will move to some form of digital currency.
Okay, but when we started this, you said, so I think Bitcoin is here to stay. A couple years ago, people kept saying to me, well, Bitcoin, it could just disappear overnight. Everybody's Bitcoin could just be worth nothing. You have Bitcoin that's worth $20,000 and then it's just gone. What are they talking about? How does it just disappear?
Well, it doesn't disappear. What happens is it's no different than the stock market, right? When you have more, it doesn't matter which, say Apple stock. If you have more buyers than sellers, Apple stock goes up in value. If you have more sellers than buyers, Apple stock will go down in value. And Bitcoin is really not that different right now. There's 19.5 million coins in circulation, a lot of which are actually taken out of circulation because they're held in wallets by people that don't plan on selling them. So the actual number that's out there is probably quite a bit less than 19.5 million. And in the end, it's a ledger that keeps track of transactions. That's what the blockchain really is. And so I think what we're looking at is, if you look at it in reverse, Tudor, I think the problem that people have with fiat currencies today is that let's just take the United States, for example. We just passed $1.9 trillion in COVID stimulus and took on a bunch of debt to do it. And now the Biden administration is talking about taking another $3 trillion on in stimulus in April. Okay, and a lot of that will be financed with debt, not all of it. So now we're going to be approaching $30 trillion in debt in the United States. And the only way to pay that back reasonably is to discount the value of that currency in the future. And so the reason that Bitcoin was created is because there's a bunch of people that said, I don't want governments in control of my currency, and I don't want them to be able to take on debt, make bad decisions, and then stick me with the bill, right? So here's a better example. When my parents were younger, and let's say when my dad hypothetically retired 15, 20 years ago, he could put $1 million in the bank and get $50,000 worth of income. Today, if somebody retires, they have to put $10 million in the bank to get that same $50,000 worth of income. And I think that's the challenge and the solution that that the Bitcoiners are trying to present by giving people a store of value that won't be discounted or devalued in the future by governments.
Interesting. Okay, so are you recommending that people invest in Bitcoin?
That's a great question. And so, no. So I'm not dispensing any financial advice here. We're having an intellectual conversation about the topic. So one of the issues just fundamentally in the investment industry is that there are no Bitcoin investments that you can buy. There's no Bitcoin ETFs. If you want to buy Bitcoin directly, you could go to something like Coinbase, open up an account, and buy your own cryptocurrency there. But as far as using it long-term as an investment strategy, I think there's 5 exchange-traded funds that have filed with the SEC right now that want to own Bitcoin and allow investors to actually own Bitcoin directly. But right now, through the registered securities process, there's no such animal in the United States. There is one ETF that's traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange, but nothing here in the United States. But again, I think this is a longer-term issue. I think Bitcoin is here to stay. Whether or not Bitcoin ends up being something closer to gold, which is just a store of value, or whether it ultimately becomes a currency, an actual currency, that's a long runway because, as you know, governments are powerful and they don't like giving up control. And so it's not likely that fight is going to end anytime soon.
Well, I learned a lot about this today, and as this keeps changing and evolving, we're going to have you back. Terry Sawchuk, thank you so much for being on today. You taught us a lot.
Thanks, Tudor. Appreciate the time.